Most men think attraction opens when you say something bold, clever, or sexually charged, but that belief quietly works against you. Real desire doesn't respond to pressure, lines, or confidence theater. It responds to how safe and understood a woman feels in your presence. Have you ever noticed how some conversations feel charged without anything explicit being said, while others fall flat even when you do everything right? That's not randomness. That's psychology. Most men are taught to chase attraction forward, but desire opens sideways, through curiosity, attunement, and emotional ease. When a woman feels you're not trying to get something from her, her guard drops. And when her guard drops, attraction has room to grow. In this video, I'm going to break down the kinds of questions that naturally deepen connection and invite desire, without manipulation, awkwardness, or pretending to be someone you're not. This isn't about scripts or tactics. It's about understanding how attraction actually works in the nervous system and emotional brain. When you know why certain conversations create closeness, you stop guessing and start trusting yourself. This matters now because so many men are exhausted from trying to perform confidence instead of embodying it. If you want intimacy that feels mutual, relaxed, and real, this shift changes everything. Stay with me, because once you see this clearly, conversations stop feeling risky and start feeling natural. Attraction doesn't begin with excitement. It begins with regulation. Research in psychology and sexual health consistently shows that desire emerges when the nervous system feels safe enough to soften. Studies published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine and broader attachment research make this clear. Arousal is not a spontaneous impulse. It's a responsive state. That state depends heavily on emotional context. When a woman feels evaluated, rushed, or subtly pressured, her nervous system stays alert. Even if she's interested, desire struggles to fully activate. Questions matter because they shift attention away from performance and toward connection. A well-placed question signals curiosity without demand. It communicates, "I'm here with you, not trying to extract something from you." This is why curiosity is more powerful than confidence posturing. Questions create shared focus, which reduces threat and increases presence. From a neurological standpoint, this activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the state associated with relaxation, openness, and receptivity. Most men misunderstand this and assume desire requires stimulation or escalation. In reality, it requires permission. Questions offer that permission by slowing the interaction and allowing her to stay in her body instead of her defenses. This is also why rehearsed lines fail. They bypass attunement and signal outcome focus. When curiosity is genuine, the body senses it. Desire follows not because of what you asked, but because of how safe it felt to be asked. In real conversations, this shows up in subtle but powerful ways. Imagine two men asking the same question. One is leaning forward, eyes searching for a reaction, already anticipating where the conversation should go. The other is relaxed, grounded, and genuinely interested in the answer without needing it to lead anywhere. The words may be identical, but the impact is completely different. In my experience, women are far more responsive to the second man. Not because he's smoother, but because he's not demanding anything from the moment. Most men miss this because they focus on what to ask instead of how they're showing up while asking. When you slow down, maintain easy eye contact, and give space for her response, the conversation naturally deepens. You don't interrupt. You don't steer it toward intimacy. You let it unfold. This is where attraction quietly builds. It feels organic because it is. The moment she senses that she doesn't have to perform or impress you, her body relaxes. That relaxation often shows up as longer answers, softer tone, or playful energy. That's the signal most men rush past. Instead of trying to capitalize on it, you stay present. Ironically, that restraint is what makes you feel safe and intriguing at the same time. When you think about your own conversations, do you notice yourself listening for connection or listening for an opening to move things forward? Emotional safety is not a mood. It's a biological signal. Attachment research shows that when someone feels emotionally safe, their nervous system downshifts out of vigilance and into openness. This is critical for intimacy. Studies in relational psychology consistently demonstrate that people experience deeper attraction when they feel accepted without evaluation. For many women, safety is the gateway to desire, not the opposite of it. Questions that create emotional safety share a common quality. They don't corner, test, or assess. Instead, they invite. From a psychological standpoint, this reduces social threat. The brain stops scanning for judgment and begins to engage authentically. Research on attachment styles also shows that when someone feels emotionally attuned to, oxytocin levels increase, strengthening feelings of connection and trust. This doesn't happen through impressive statements or bold advances. It happens through curiosity that feels patient and non-invasive. Safety-building questions are open-ended and experiential. They focus on how someone experiences the world rather than who they're supposed to be. This matters because many women are accustomed to being evaluated, even subtly, in conversation. When your questions don't carry that weight, you stand out. Not as someone trying to attract, but as someone who feels grounding. And grounding presence is deeply attractive because it allows desire to emerge naturally, without pressure or defense. In real life, creating emotional safety looks deceptively simple. It often starts with how you receive her answers. Most men listen with the intention to respond, impress, or redirect the conversation. A safer dynamic emerges when you listen to understand. In my experience, when a man allows a woman to fully finish her thought without jumping in, correcting, or one-upping, something shifts. Her shoulders soften, her voice slows, the conversation becomes less guarded. A practical example might be asking about a moment in her week that stood out to her, then letting silence exist after she answers. That pause communicates comfort, not awkwardness. It tells her she doesn't need to rush or perform. Many men feel the urge to fill that space. Resisting that urge is powerful. Emotional safety is also reinforced when you don't react dramatically. If she shares something personal, you don't interrogate or analyze it. You acknowledge it calmly. This steadiness signals maturity and emotional intelligence. Over time, these small moments stack. She begins to associate your presence with ease. Attraction grows because her body learns that being with you feels lighter than being with most people. When you think about your conversations, do you create space for her to settle, or do you unknowingly create pressure to keep things moving? Emotional polarity is often misunderstood. It's not about dominance, mystery, or emotional distance. From a psychological perspective, polarity emerges when two different emotional states interact in a complementary way. Attachment research and studies on attraction show that desire intensifies when one person provides emotional stability while the other is free to express and explore. This dynamic creates contrast without threat. Research from the Kinsey Institute and broader sexology literature suggests that arousal increases when emotional expression is met with grounded presence rather than reactivity. In this context, questions play a powerful role. The right questions don't pull you into her emotional state or try to manage it. Instead, they invite her to move while you remain centered. This creates a subtle but important dynamic. She feels free to express, and you feel trustworthy to express with. Polarity forms when you're curious without needing validation, and present without being emotionally dependent on her response. This is why overly eager or overly detached approaches both fail. One collapses polarity by chasing. The other blocks it by withdrawing. Questions that support polarity are steady, calm, and open-ended. They allow emotional depth to emerge while signaling that you can handle it. That capacity to stay regulated while someone opens emotionally is one of the strongest predictors of attraction in long-term relational research. Desire grows not from intensity, but from the feeling that emotional depth is welcome and contained. In real interactions, emotional polarity often shows up in how you respond to her energy. If she becomes animated, reflective, or emotionally expressive, many men feel the urge to match her intensity or steer it somewhere safer. In my experience, the more attractive move is to stay grounded and curious. For example, if she starts sharing something meaningful, you might simply acknowledge it and invite her to continue rather than reacting strongly or trying to fix anything. Your calm becomes the container. This doesn't mean being passive or silent. It means asking questions that encourage depth without pulling you off center. Most men miss this because they confuse polarity with emotional distance. In reality, it's emotional steadiness. You're engaged, but not destabilized. Over time, this creates a sense of emotional tension that feels safe rather than anxious. She feels free to explore her thoughts and feelings, knowing you're not going to overwhelm her or disappear. That freedom is deeply attractive. You'll notice this dynamic when conversations naturally become more personal without effort. You didn't escalate, you didn't push, you simply held space. When you reflect on your own experiences, do you tend to match emotional intensity, or can you stay steady while still being present? Attraction doesn't live in logic. It lives in sensation, emotion, and embodied experience. Neuroscience research shows that when someone is primarily in their analytical mind, the brain regions associated with monitoring, evaluating, and self-protection are active. Desire, however, is associated with states of absorption and felt experience. Studies in affective neuroscience and sexology consistently show that arousal increases when attention shifts from analysis to sensation. This is why conversations that stay purely intellectual often feel flat, even when there's mutual interest. Questions that move someone into feeling don't ask for explanations or opinions. They invite memory, imagination, or emotional recall. This gently redirects attention from thinking about the interaction to experiencing the moment. Importantly, this shift doesn't require anything explicit. In fact, subtlety is key. When a question allows someone to reconnect with how something felt rather than what it meant, the body responds before the mind does. This is also supported by research on embodied cognition, which shows that emotional recall activates similar neural pathways as the original experience. In simple terms, feeling remembered is feeling relived. That's why these questions can quietly deepen attraction. They don't push toward intimacy. They create conditions where intimacy naturally emerges because the person feels more present in their body and less self-conscious in their head. In everyday conversation, shifting someone from thinking to feeling often comes down to pacing and restraint. Most men instinctively follow an interesting answer with another question that keeps the conversation moving forward. A more effective approach is to slow down and let the feeling land. In my experience, when a man asks a question that invites emotional recall and then gives space, the moment deepens on its own. For example, if she mentions a time she felt truly alive or at ease, you don't immediately change the subject or analyze it. You let that moment breathe. You might acknowledge it briefly or invite her to stay with it a little longer without probing. This communicates comfort with emotional presence. Many men worry that silence will feel awkward. In reality, that pause often feels intimate. It allows her to remain connected to the feeling instead of snapping back into analysis. This is where attraction subtly intensifies. Her voice may soften. Her body language may change. None of this is forced. It's a natural response to feeling safe enough to stay embodied. The key is not to rush the moment or try to turn it into something. You simply stay present. When you think about your own conversations, how often do you allow feelings to linger before moving on? Beneath every attractive question is a deeper emotional message. It's not about curiosity alone. It's about what your curiosity communicates. Attachment research shows that the most powerful relational signal is non-demand. When someone feels there is no expectation placed on them, their nervous system relaxes. This is critical for desire. Studies in relational neuroscience suggest that pressure, even when subtle, activates self-monitoring and defense. Acceptance, on the other hand, activates trust and openness. The question beneath all questions is not something you say out loud. It's the unspoken message. You don't have to perform here. When your presence communicates that message, attraction has room to emerge naturally. This is why two men can ask similar questions and get completely different responses. One carries an agenda. The other carries patience. The body can sense the difference immediately. This aligns with research on emotional attunement, which shows that people respond not just to words, but to tone, pacing, and emotional congruence. When your curiosity is relaxed and unattached to outcome, it signals confidence rooted in self-trust rather than validation seeking. That form of confidence is deeply attractive because it feels stable and emotionally mature. Desire doesn't grow from being impressed. It grows from feeling free to be fully oneself without pressure or expectation. In real life, embodying this principle requires letting go of control over where the interaction goes. Most men struggle here because they believe attraction must be directed or managed. In my experience, the opposite is true. When you stop trying to guide the outcome, conversations become more fluid and engaging. This might look like asking a thoughtful question and being genuinely okay with any answer, even a short one. You don't push for depth. You don't steer it toward intimacy. You allow the interaction to unfold at its own pace. That ease is felt immediately. Over time, women begin to associate your presence with freedom rather than expectation. This is where attraction often deepens unexpectedly. You're no longer another person subtly asking for something. You're someone she can relax around. That relaxation often leads to openness, warmth, and desire without you ever needing to signal it explicitly. Most men underestimate how rare this feels. They also underestimate how magnetic it is. When you reflect on your interactions, ask yourself this: are you more focused on where the conversation should go or on how it feels to be in it together right now? Let's bring this together. Attraction isn't something you force or figure out with the right words. It grows when the nervous system feels safe, relaxed, and engaged. Questions work not because they're clever, but because they create presence. When you lead with curiosity instead of pressure, emotional safety replaces tension. When you stay grounded instead of chasing, emotional polarity emerges naturally. And when you allow feelings to linger instead of rushing forward, connection deepens on its own. None of this requires performance, confidence tricks, or pretending to be someone you're not. This is about awareness, pacing, and self-trust. If you've ever felt confused about why attraction seems inconsistent, understand this: nothing is wrong with you. You were simply never shown how desire actually works. When you slow down and stay present, intimacy stops feeling uncertain and starts feeling human. If this video helped you see attraction more clearly, take a moment to like it and subscribe. It helps this channel reach men who want depth, not gimmicks. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. What part of this resonated most with your own experiences? And where do you notice yourself feeling the urge to rush or control the outcome in conversations? Your reflections help shape future videos. In the next one, we'll explore why trying to be confident often backfires, and what calm, grounded confidence actually looks like in real relationships. It's a shift that changes how you're felt, not just how you're perceived. If you want attraction that feels mutual, relaxed, and sustainable, you won't want to miss it.